And welcome to Hannity, and we're broadcasting tonight from beautiful Green Bay, Wisconsin. In a moment, we will air my exclusive town hall with President Trump. But first, earlier today, I traveled with the president to Marinette Marine. Now, look at this video from Dan Scavino. Now, people were just lining the streets just to get a glimpse of the president today. Pretty big crowds. I had an opportunity to tour the shipbuilding facility with the president, which was recently awarded a $5.5 billion Navy contract. Today, the president said that contract will enable them to hire another 1,000 people across all the shipyards in Wisconsin, a total of perhaps even 10,000 jobs. Listen to this.
The massive deal is worth up to $5.5 billion. We'll put the shipyard to work constructing some of the fastest, most advanced, and most maneuverable combat ships anywhere in the ocean. I hear the maneuverability is one of the big factors that you were chosen for the contract. The other is your location in Wisconsin, if you want to know the truth. This contract will support your 1,500 full-time employees, and it will also enable you to hire another 1,000 people all across the shipyards in Wisconsin. It's one of the biggest contracts you've ever seen in the state. An estimated 15,000 additional new jobs will be created through the Wisconsin supply chain.
All right, also today, Joe Biden, yep, no surprise. He actually got out of his basement bunker for a few minutes and, yes, makes another huge gaffe. Take a look.
Now we have over 120 million dead from COVID.
Wait a second. Did he just say that? Let me play it again.
Now we have over 120 million dead from COVID.
Now, Biden did go on later to correct himself, but on top of every other gaffe that he has now made, it is now a legitimate question. It was in 1984 with President Reagan. Is he fit? Does he have the strength and stamina and the mental alertness to run this country? That is now a fair question. By the way, here is now my exclusive behind-the-scenes tour with President Trump at the shipbuilding facility earlier today. When you look at the idea of open borders, sanctuary cities and states, he would give amnesty.
Oh, yeah.
You look at, he wants to raise taxes, everything's free, and then the Green New Deal, which would eliminate the lifeblood of the world's economy.
Number one, the Democrats want open borders, okay? Open borders, think of it. Even if you just look at, the virus that we're talking about, take a look at that, open borders. If you go to San Diego, where we just built a beautiful new long stretch of wall, if we didn't have that wall, California would be infected like nobody's ever seen before, because the stretch just to the left of San Diego, right next to the wall, is heavily infected in Mexico. So if we didn't have it, they want to have open borders, they want to have sanctuary cities, they want to have no guns, in other words, end the Second Amendment, and they want to have no energy because they're totally against anything petroleum. They're probably against everything. They're probably against wind, too, kills birds.
How do you not take control of a city and allow anarchists to take over, call it whatever you want to call it?
And with us, they're not. And with us, we've gotten very tough. We have over 100 people under arrest, which nobody knows. I said, how come nobody knows that? They said, sir, we're law enforcement people. I said, they're right. They're not public relations people. But we should let people know we've arrested a lot of people. And based on the Monuments Act, which is already in existence, they get 10 years in jail. Let's see. Let's see. Now people are just learning about it. But when they hear 10 years, ever since I announced that last week, it's been very modified by comparison. I don't know if you see that, but very modified. So they want to knock out a monument or a statue, they get 10 years in prison.
Joe left his bunker for 5 minutes, and, he had another gaffe. Said 120 million people now have died from coronavirus. I don't know whether to laugh or cry.
Did he say that?
Yes, he did.
So that's a third of our population. That
would be off by quite a lot.
He said that.
Yes, sir.
It's too bad.
I don't make things up. I'm not fake news. I do real news.
Can I be honest? It's too bad. Yeah. It's too bad. But, I want to be a nice guy. I think I am a nice guy. I'm proud of being. I love people.
Yeah.
But my most important job is to run this country great. I built it once so great. Turn it off. Now we're doing it again. And it's happening.
And you're ready to roll.
It's going to be better than ever. But here's the thing. I've got to do that, folks. This is serious business. We can't have somebody. That's a mistake. That's not a mistake. That's a serious error. When he says he's running for the U.S. Senate, that's a serious error. When he says, I'm going to beat Joe Biden, which got very little coverage, that's not like an error, gee, it's a slip-up. That's a serious error. So when you just told me that, I hadn't heard that just happened, I guess.
Yes, it did.
That's a serious error. That's not a permissible type of error, because there's something going on. And we can't take that. It's wonderful to say, gee, I feel sorry, or it's too bad, because I do. Except we're talking about the presidency of the United States, and it's just not acceptable.
Last question. I just want, if you could just pan around our camera and look at the sheer size of this incredible ship.
That's right. So this is one of the ones that actually isn't in the contract. It's in another contract.
Wow.
And what happens is these ships are all happening now under this administration.
Yeah. Well, more money spent on the military. You kept your tax promises. Supreme Court justices. You'll have 400 plus miles of wall built by election day.
Very easily we'll be up to that, and we'll have 500 miles just a little bit after the end of the year, way ahead of schedule. And this is despite the fact that the Democrats didn't want to have any wall built because they wanted open borders. Think about it. You take the virus and you have open borders, we would be in trouble like you've never seen, because the trouble that Mexico's got, and the South American countries. Look at Brazil. Look at what's happening there. People could flow in. We have among the lowest number of, we call them break-ins, that we've ever had coming in from the southern border. Plus Mexico has 27,000 troops guarding us, gratis guarding us, guarding that people don't come in. This is some difference between the way we had it and the way it is now. We have a strong border. We have strong everything now, Joe.
Last question. How many jobs will be created just for these 20
You
ships?
ultimately have 10,000. It's starting off at 2, goes to 4, goes to 6. We'll ultimately go to 10,000 jobs.
I thought those jobs were never coming back.
They're coming back, and this is a great state. Wisconsin is a great state, and these craftsmen as boat builders are phenomenal. You just saw, I met one young man, his grandfather, his father, and him, and now his son is going to start working here.
Amazing.
But it was closed. It was ready to close. I think they were down to 40 people, 40 or 50 people. It was going to close, and now it's a vibrant place and great for Wisconsin.
You've been very generous with your time.
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
President.
Thank you. It's a great honor.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And now, here's my town hall that we taped earlier today from an airplane hangar in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Now, by the way, we followed all the rules and recommendations of the county in which we're doing this so as to have as many people as they recommended. Small crowd, but an enthusiastic group of people. Obviously, because of all that we've been dealing with COVID-19, we had a lot of ground to cover tonight. Watch this. Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks for joining us. We're going to take some audience questions throughout the hour. You're here in Wisconsin. One of the things everybody's looking for, and we'll get into more detail throughout the hour, is the economy. You are going to leave this town hall, and you're going to announce that you're building 20 new ships. You're rebuilding the military.
That's right.
And how many jobs?
Well, it's going to be probably 6,000, 7,000 jobs. Could go up to 10 in Wisconsin alone. And it's a great shipyard that was on hard times, and now it's a very good shipyard, and a lot of people are going to be working, and it's one of the most beautiful ships. It looks like a yacht with a lot of ammunition on it, I will tell you. It's really something, and we'll probably end up with 20 or 25, and these are big ones, beautiful ships, and they do a beautiful job in Wisconsin. So I'm here, it's sort of like a launch. We're starting work, and the contract's all given, and you won it right here, so congratulations, folks.
We as a nation, we've been watching. There was universal agreement that what happened to George Floyd should never happen, can never happen again.
Right.
And you've been very outspoken about it as well. And there were peaceful protesters, but then there were people rioting. We see anarchy. We see rocks and bottles and bricks and Molotov cocktails thrown at police officers, police precincts burned to the ground in Seattle, an autonomous zone that still remains, it's changing apparently today, but taken over, including a police precinct. And you're offering all of these states help, New York, Illinois, and Washington. What are they telling you when you offer them help?
Well, first of all, we have arrested, I think almost, but it could be over the number, hundreds of people. We have arrested a lot of people for what they've done. They've created bedlam. They've destroyed very important things. I mean, you're also talking about statues of George Washington, Abraham Lincoln. They'd like to get Jesus. You know that, right? They said, we want to get Jesus.
You had Sean King, the radical.
These are nothing to do with any particular event other than they're troublemakers, they're agitators, and they're anarchists. The big thing they want is they want to really destabilize our country, and we don't let them. So I said to my people, if you've arrested so many, how come we don't know about it? They said, we don't talk about it, sir, we do it. But I said, I think the public should know it. And, you know, we have a Statues Act, a Monument Act, which puts you in jail for 10 years if you do what they've done. So we've got that. We've got all the tapes, because the nice part is it's all on television. Like the character on the horse the other day, he's up there putting on the ropes. He's in trouble on the Andrew Jackson, beautiful. It's beautiful, right opposite the White House. And you got to remember, Andrew Jackson, the Battle of New Orleans, and so much. He was a very good president. He was a great general. And you can't let that happen. But they're after Abraham Lincoln. And tonight, I guess they're looking at Abraham Lincoln. And that was the Emancipation Proclamation. So you have that, and you're signing Emancipation Proclamation, and you have somebody, I think, that wasn't freed, and he's getting up. It's the position of he's getting up. He's being freed by Abraham Lincoln. And I can see controversy, but I can also see beauty in it. And it was paid for by slaves. I don't know if you know that. It was paid for because they were so grateful to the president. It was paid for that reason. And they want to take it down. And, you know, we can take things down, too. I can understand museums or wherever they may go. But these are really rioters, and there are a lot of bad people involved. You know, they talk about protesters, and they're protesters, but there are beyond protesters, too, and we're not going to allow it. So we have many, many people under arrest, and we have some just from the other night in Washington, but I'm talking about in other states also.
You've offered help to New York?
Excuse me, by the way, and Washington is not D.C., not a state. Because if I say that, a little statement like that, sometimes I'll say, should I correct myself? Because the fake news will say, he thought D.C. was a state. So I just want to make that clear so they can't do it. Okay.
Always
they do
predicting
that. Oh, by the way, they do it all the time. You know what I mean?
Let's talk about these states, though. You see your old city, you're now a Florida resident. You're going to save a lot of money on taxes. There's no state income tax in Florida. But you see New York City, 350% increase. You see in Chicago last weekend, 102 of our fellow citizens were shot, 12 were children, and 14 died. The carnage existed all throughout these years that Joe Biden was vice president, Barack was president. I don't know any reforms that they put in place after Ferguson or after Baltimore or many other incidents.
No, they did virtually nothing. And I call him Corrupt Joe. He's corrupt. And you look at that administration, they have had more. And wait till you see what's happening. Because you saw the notes now from the Oval Office meeting and all of the things.
We're going to get to that.
What's happening is a disgrace. This is a corrupt situation. We caught them spying on my campaign. They were spying. I said that a long time ago, remember? But I said it without great knowledge. It turned out to be correct. They were spying on my campaign. And if that were the other way around, if it was switched with Democrat and Republican, the opposite way, you'd have people in jail for 50 years for what they did, because that's treason. That's a terrible thing what they did. And what they've done to people like General Flynn and like others is disgraceful.
I want to get back to that. I want to stay on this issue, though. If we are to become a more perfect union, and if we really want to pursue happiness, we first have to have law and order.
Correct.
Okay. These big cities, we've watched Chicago violence now for how long? All through the Obama, Joe Biden administration.
Years ago.
They barely mentioned it in 8 years.
Yeah.
You see Seattle. You see New York City. We see now people dying in the autonomous zone. I don't know how people can pursue their happiness and dreams in life if they don't have basic fundamental security.
You can't. You can't. Look, Chicago's an example. It's like worse than Afghanistan. It's worse than, I shouldn't say because they're working with us, Honduras, Guatemala. They're all working with us now. You know, we have our lowest numbers. We have phenomenal numbers on the border. Border Patrol has done a great job. We built 220 miles of wall. It's going up very rapidly. We should be doing about 10 miles a week now. And we're going to have, it'll be completed very soon. But what we've done there is incredible, but you look at Honduras, Guatemala, all of these different places, we have cities that are worse, in some cases far worse. Take a look at Detroit. Take a look at what's happening in Oakland. Take a look at what's happening in Baltimore. And everyone gets upset when I say it. They say, oh, is that a racist statement? It's not a racist. Frankly, black people come up to me, say, thank you, sir, for saying it. They want help. These cities, it's like living in hell. But last week, and I think 2 weeks before that, they shot 14 and 18 people killed and 68 people in Chicago.
104 last weekend.
If I've ever seen a case, I know it's very controversial to say, stop and frisk. Okay? Stop and frisk. You take guns away. Chicago is the greatest example I think I've ever seen of that. Rudy Giuliani was a great mayor. He did it in New York. He started it, and it worked great. Bloomberg blew it because he went crazy with it, and ultimately he took away a lot of rights and it wasn't a good job he did. But Rudy Giuliani started stop and frisk, and it was a great thing he did for New York.
The murder rate went, for those that don't know, I lived in New York City at the time, went from around 2,500 a year. They drove it all the way down to 500. And what they did is they went into the areas that had the highest incidence of crime.
That's right.
And saved a lot of lives. So we're Americans. I think we can do anything. I'm that optimistic. We could stop the violence, right?
We could stop it quickly. And at some point in the not too distant future, I'm going to do it. And if they don't do something with Seattle, we're going to do that. We're going to go in there because what's happening, they're taking over American cities. By the way, in all cases, it's Democrats. They're Democrat run in all cases. And Joe Biden would have that be the whole country. It's so crazy what's happening. Here's a guy doesn't talk. Nobody hears him. Whenever he does talk, he can't put two sentences together. I don't want to be nice or unnice, okay? But, I mean, the man can't speak. And he's going to be your president because some people don't love me, maybe. And, all I'm doing is doing my job. Don't forget, before the China plague came in, and it's a China plague, before that came in, we had the best job numbers we've ever had. We had the best economy we've ever had. We had the best stock market we've ever had, which, by the way, is getting very close to those numbers anyway. And in NASDAQ, it's actually beat those numbers. But we have the best numbers we've ever had. African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, women, young people without a diploma, young people with a diploma, college, everything. We had the best numbers we've ever had, the best economy we've ever had. I was absolutely doing a number on China. Not that I want to, but we're taking billions and billions away. China ran away from us when they were going to take over our country. If I didn't come along, they would have taken over our country. What they did to Obama and Biden, they ripped off this country hundreds of billions of dollars a year going into China. And nobody said anything. They didn't even talk about it. It's not like we had a bad deal with China. It was worse. We had no deal. They did whatever. And I get along very well with them. I said, how did it happen? They said, nobody ever asked. Nobody said we're going to make a deal. We're taking in hundreds of billions of dollars worth of tariffs. And we're not paying for them. China is paying for them because they devalue their currency. So we've done an incredible job. We beat China badly. China had the worst year they've had in 67 years prior to the plague coming in. They had the worst year they had in 67 years because of the tariffs and all of the things that I've done. But he'll say, he got beat in the China deal. They didn't do a China deal. China ate our lunch before me, and they would have destroyed our country. China, in my opinion, would have destroyed our country economically if I didn't get elected. And many other things. Coronavirus, we did the ventilators. We didn't have any ventilators. We did the ventilators. We did so much.
10 days after the first identified case of coronavirus in the United States,
right,
you implemented a travel ban, followed by a quarantine that hadn't happened in 50 years, and then subsequent travel bans. Joe said it was hysteria, xenophobic, right, and fear-mongering.
Well, he didn't say it. They have people that write, I'll make a statement. It'll be a nice statement. It'll be a little complex, or maybe it's not complex. And they will have that statement analyzed. And they'll say, Vice President Biden said, and they'll have it broken down. And I said, he didn't say that. He never said xenophobic, because I don't think he knows what the word means. But he said it was xenophobic. It was horrible. So I made the deal. That was at the end of January. That's very early, January.
January 31st.
Nancy Pelosi and many other people, including Republicans, were months later, they were saying, let's go to Chinatown and celebrate. Nancy Pelosi was celebrating in the streets.
February 24th.
Correct, in the streets of Chinatown. And then there's no business like this. You could do a great job, like Schumer. I did a phenomenal job on a trade deal. And they asked him, what do you think of the deal? Oh, I didn't like it. No good, no good. He never even saw the deal. It's just like an automatic thing. Do you hear the sound of that helicopter? Is that a beautiful sound?
Beautiful sound.
Made in the USA. It's all made in the USA.
You mentioned earlier my list. Look, I was a little surprised, I'm not going to lie. They had predicted for May 9.5 million jobs lost. We ended up gaining 2.5 million.
Almost 3.
We had the largest retail sales month. I don't know if you all saw the numbers, 18%. That's a record. So here's my list.
And we had a pretty good number come out today on jobs, too.
I didn't see today's numbers.
Also better than projected, but more importantly, so we have more cases because we do the greatest testing. If we didn't do testing, we'd have no cases. Other countries, they don't test millions. So up to almost 30 million tests. So when you do 30 million, you're going to have a kid with the sniffles, and they'll say it's coronavirus, whatever you want to call it. I said the other night, there are so many names to this. I could name 19 names, like Corona 19, but I could name 19 names. But the fact is that there's never been a thing like this. We've done 30 million, almost. We'll be there probably today or tomorrow. 30 million tests. Now, when you do tests, you have cases. But what they don't say is there are fewer deaths than there have been. Way, way down. And our mortality rate is among the best countries in the world, meaning people that die. Because a lot of these tests, it's a kid doesn't even know. In some cases, it's people that didn't even know they were sick. Maybe they weren't, but it shows up in a test. So they'll say 30 million tests. Now you have a big percentage of that. But other countries do very few tests. So it shows they have very few cases. And sometimes I jokingly say, or sarcastically say, if we didn't do tests, we'd look great. But you know what? It's not the right thing to do.
Treatment, vaccine, where are we?
So I think the vaccines are coming along great, and I think what they call therapeutics are coming along great. And I think we're going to have an answer very soon indeed. I think it will be even before the end of the year, we'll have a vaccine. We have great companies, and we're totally mobilized. Military is doing it. We're ready to go. As soon as they have it, we will be distributing that all over the country.
Let me go. You talked about my list earlier. So Joe Biden was vice president for 8 years. He has a record that at some point, I assume somebody might have to ask him, or maybe you will when you debate him, if he shows up, which is a question we'll find out in the future. But 13 million more Americans after 8 years were on food stamps, 8 million more in poverty, the lowest labor participation rate since the 70s,
right.
Worst recovery since the 40s, lowest home ownership rate in 15 years. Now I look at your record. Pre-coronavirus, we had record after record low unemployment with African Americans, Hispanic Americans, you know the list, even African American youth unemployment. Then I want to get to the issue because it seems like if we look and compare and contrast, historically black colleges, a 5-year commitment with more money than ever before, opportunity zones. And I think one of the biggest changes is criminal justice reform.
Well, the biggest thing, criminal justice reform. Obama and Biden never even tried it. And that was something so important for the black community. They came to me, they wanted it so badly because it's a very unfair situation. And they came.
So unfair to minorities.
Especially minorities, and especially black and Hispanic. It's so unfair. And I said, why wasn't this done before? Now, Obama didn't try. If he did, he may come out and say, we did try, but, he didn't get it done. I got it done. People said you wouldn't be able to get it done. I got it done. With the help of some very good Republicans that, frankly, they could have gone either way on it, to be honest. Although we had some very strong conservative Republicans, like Mike Lee, Republicans that wanted it very much. Chuck Grassley, some great, strong conservative Republicans that wanted it very much. So it, is both ways. Very unusual. You had some very strong conservatives, and you also had some really, really liberal people. But we did criminal justice reform. Nobody thought it was possible to get it done. I got it done. They couldn't get it done. And then they'll say such horrible things. I mean, on the campaign, they'll say such horrible things about me. It's a very unfair business. But the ad he did this morning, it's a great ad for them. I got beaten by China. Wrong. I beat China very badly.
Wait,
I didn't do this, a coronavirus.
I might take Joe's side, though, because I don't think your son got $1.5 billion.
That's right. That's right. It's a way of looking at it, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
No, nobody's ever seen anything like that. But what they'll do is they'll take 5 or 6 points and just say I lost. And if you look at what we've done on ventilators, on testing, again, where we have 30 million, Germany is second with maybe 4, maybe 5 million. So Germany's going to show fewer cases because they're testing far fewer people, different sized countries and all, but they're testing far fewer people. But many countries don't do testing like that. So it shows we're way up in testing. But what it also shows, by doing that, in all fairness, it shows a very, very low mortality rate, just about the lowest. So we're right at the bottom in a positive way. And I think that people are starting to see it. But if I don't do a show like this, you know, which is live or semi-live, if I don't do a show like this, it will be, we're not going to get the word out because the press is really corrupt and dishonest. I can't believe it. I used to say, you know, fake news, fake news. It's much worse than fake news. And it's not only what they say, it's what they don't say.
Yeah.
Something great could be happening, and they refuse to report it.
You mentioned General Flynn. We saw Peter Strzok's notes. Now, a lot of it was redacted. My sources have been telling me. And this program,
big stuff.
I've devoted almost 3 years to unpeeling every layer of the onion. In fact, what we now know is that there was that January 5th meeting in the Oval Office. Barack Obama was there. Joe Biden was there. Barack said he wants only our people on this. In other words, the day before General Flynn was exonerated, the case was going to be closed. Then Joe Biden brought up the Logan Act, which you mentioned earlier, 1799 law nobody's ever been prosecuted for. Now, not only was it that, we've now learned that there was premeditated fraud on a FISA court to spy on you as a candidate, you and your transition team,
it's unbelievable.
And deep into your presidency. And James Comey signed 3 of the 4 warrants, but he came to you after he signed the first one in Trump Tower and said, well, again, now we know the bulk of information was Hillary's dirty Russian disinformation dossier.
She paid a lot of money for it.
She paid for it. They knew it. They said they had verified it. It turned out to be all untrue. But it ended up for you to be, and the country, a 3-year nightmare. My question, though, is this. I mean, General Flynn lost 4 years of his life.
Right.
Roger Stone's supposed to report to jail, and the jury foreperson in his case. Paul Manafort's case was dead. And many people that worked for you paid how much in lawyers' fees over this lie?
So start in reverse order. Paul Manafort, they sent in a book. It looked like he got all sorts of cash. It turned out to be a fraud. What they did to that man, what they did to Paul Manafort. Roger Stone, what they've done to Roger Stone, because he knew me. He wasn't on the campaign except the very, very beginning. What they did with Roger Stone, what they did to General Flynn. And how about Papadopoulos? I didn't know Papadopoulos, but what they put him through, he turned out to be total. They had a tape of his conversation that was supposed to be, his conversation was like a perfect conversation. They also have a tape of Flynn's conversation with the Russian ambassador, which is a normal thing to do. You're going to have that position. You start calling up because you want to coordinate between countries. And the tape was up, as I said, with the Russia, with the Ukrainian situation. It was a perfect tape. It was a perfect conversation that he had. What they've done to General Flynn, who's a nice man, tough guy, smart guy, a great general. I'll tell you, General Milley said he's one of the finest people. You know, he's just a good man, Flynn. What happened to him, the way they went after him, and if you remember well, the FBI left, they said he did nothing wrong. They said he didn't lie. They didn't say he lied. They said he didn't lie. They persecuted him.
They threatened to put his son and go after his son.
They said to me, what was the toughest, friends of mine, what's the toughest country to deal with? Who is it? Is it China? Is it Russia? Could it be North Korea? I said, no. It's the United States of America, the toughest country to deal with, because we have Schumer and Pelosi and people that are bad people that I honestly believe don't love our country. What they do to our country and what they've done with this scam, the whole scam, Flynn is a piece of it, the Mueller scam. Now it came out that Mueller should have announced in the first week that we did nothing wrong. In other words, they had evidence in the first few days that there was no collusion with Russia. There was nothing to do with Russia. They knew that immediately. He didn't have to take 2 or 2.5 years. They knew it immediately. What they've put this country through, Jeff Sessions was a disaster. He was a total disaster because he basically let it happen unknowingly because he's not very smart, but they let it happen, and it's a shame what they put this country through.
Mm-hmm. As you look, we now have a Durham report. We now have the Inspector General report. I would imagine there's probably going to be indictments at the end of this. When you look at the names of the people, for example, the jury foreperson in Roger Stone's case was prejudiced against. That was not a fair.
Can you believe it? Even? Can you believe it? The hatred that she had for him and for me.
And you?
And she said, "Oh no, I don't know." You know, she acted like she was an innocent. She ran for Congress or something, and lost. But she was like pretending to be an innocent. How did she even get into the jury pool? She must have had a little contact. And the judge, who's been brutal, the judge who sentenced Roger, has been brutal. Take a look at what she's done to people.
Same judge in the Manafort case.
Well, take a look at what she did for Hillary-related things, okay? Wasn't brutal there, but look at what she did to people. Just take a look at what she's done. And Roger Stone had a jury foreman, woman, who was a disaster. How that's not declared a mistrial or more than a mistrial is incredible to anybody that sees it. This is a person that hated Roger Stone, hated me, and obviously said wonderful things. Otherwise, she couldn't have gone. And
it looks like he reports to jail, I believe, in 4 days.
Yeah.
Are you thinking about a pardon for any of them?
We're going to see. I don't want to get into
commutation,
that, but I think he was treated very unfairly.
Clearly.
You know, other than he may have been involved very early on, and I've known him for a long time, but I've known him like everybody in Washington knew him. You have a lot of guys in Washington, they do. He was not involved in the campaign. Maybe a little bit at the very, very beginning, but he wasn't involved. He wasn't a part of the campaign. But he's a professional. They've destroyed his life, totally destroyed his life. What they've done to Roger Stone is incredible. And the jury forewoman stands out. And to have at least not give him a new trial is inconceivable. And by the way, she was a dominant person. The juror said she was very dominating in the room. She dominated. He got a tremendously big sentence. You see these guys, they're burning down buildings, they're ripping down statues, they're hurting police. They don't go to jail. Nothing happens to them. They wanted to give him 9 years in jail.
Process crime.
Yeah, if that. And then you have these prosecutors who were Mueller-related, the whole Mueller-related thing. One friend said to me, you have to be the most innocent man in the history of the United States. I had 18 angry Democrat geniuses, all smart as hell. Mueller lost it, but they were all smart as hell. All these guys were after me. They spent 45, 49, 55, I hear all different numbers, $1 million over a period of 2.5 years. And they got nothing on me. I think I am a friend of mine said, you have to be the most perfect person.
They had everybody.
Isn't that true?
We'll take a break. We'll come back as we continue from Great Green Bay.
Don't even talk about that. The second one was about the same thing. They impeached a president of the United States. Now, in all fairness, the Republican Party was great because it got 196 to nothing Republican votes in the House and 52.5 to a half Romney. Too bad. But he half of, I call it 52.5 to a half because he had 2 votes. One was yes. But they were great. The Republican Party was great. But they were steadfast because they knew it was a hoax. It was purely a party line impeachment. Nothing like that's ever happened before.
To add to that, they had to ignore Joe on tape saying you're not getting the $1 billion unless you fire the prosecutor investigating my zero experience son making millions. But with that said, Jim is with us from beautiful Wisconsin. Hey, Jim.
Thank you, Sean. Mr. President, welcome to Green Bay, Wisconsin, and Northeast Wisconsin.
Thank you.
Great to have you with us. My question for you is, with all the unrest we've seen across the country, and right here in the state of Wisconsin last night in our capital city,
yes,
a senator was beaten, Lady Forward was ripped off her pedestal, we lost some other statues. What steps is the administration taking to give us back our streets.
So, very strong. You happen to have a Democrat governor right now. If you would have had Governor Walker, that wouldn't have happened.
That's
wouldn't
right.
have happened. I mean, I'm not saying it. If Scott were your governor, that would not have happened. But it did happen, and it was a shame. And the person they beat up was a Democrat who happened to be gay. And he was probably out there rooting him on or something, because Democrats think it's wonderful that they're destroying our country. It's a very sick thing going on. Nobody's ever seen it. Biden is going to be, look, I don't think Biden's a radical left, but it doesn't matter because they're going to just do whatever they want to do. They'll take him over. He can't perform. He's not going to be able to perform. He's shot. He's shot. Whether you like it or not, he's shot. The radical left is going to take him over. Look what happened. Elliot Engel was a pretty mainline guy. He lost by like 37 points or so. He just got killed in the election we just had yesterday. He was supposed to be a shoo-in, and he got hit by a strong far-left candidate. You have a couple of other congressmen and women that probably are going to lose or are going to lose very close, too close to call. Look at what's happened to the Democrats. And these are real lefties. These are people that take a look at Venezuela. Venezuela was a very rich country, a great country, a beacon. 20 years ago, 15 years ago, people looked, richest country in Latin, South America, richest, everything good. They don't have food. They don't have water. They have death all over. People have nothing. It's the same exact mindset and philosophy that we have today on attack. And it won't happen. Not while I'm here. It won't happen. But a guy like Biden, he's going to have no power to do anything about it. And they're dragging him. I don't know if you saw, Bernie Sanders said, my sole focus now is to take Joe Biden way left. They're going to do it because there's nobody in the center left anyway. He was left anyway. But there's nobody in the center or center left. I mean, it's a disgrace what's happened to our country. Now, with that being said, the Republicans have to get tougher. And I'm telling them all the time, because they're sitting back, they want to be politically correct. They think, oh, it's terrible to say something bad. No, no, no. I told them, you'll see. If anyone attacks, I stopped it the other night. I stopped it a number of times. But you'll see what's happening. And we told them, every night we're going to get tougher and tougher. And at some point, there's going to be retribution because there has to be. These people are vandals, but they're agitators, but they're terrorists in a sense. So I think you'll be extremely impressed. But you have to put pressure also. I love the Republicans. I told you they came for me 100%. I'm at 96% approval rating of the Republican Party. But I said, you're going to have to get tougher. You can't be politically correct anymore because we're really fighting something that's very dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.